So Sasha, where are you? Where am I talking to you from?
I'm in Germany. I'm from Germany in the southwest of Germany, a town that's probably not in need of a mention. It's a small
Okay,
town,
right on. Well, I understand that. I'm from a small town too.
very,
So,
very close to France and Luxembourg, like in that corner of Germany.
popular corner.
It actually is. Yeah, it actually
Yeah.
is. It's often belittled and people have a lot of cliches, but it's actually a very interesting cultural area because you have all these influences from France and Luxembourg. So it's actually quite nice, in my opinion.
Right on. Today, obviously we're gonna make a mixtape about you. I'm interested in discussing these songs because like my familiarity with them kind of goes up as the list goes on. There's like a graph of my awareness. And so let's talk about first a song that reminds you of your childhood.
I chose "Go West" by the Pet Shop Boys, which is, by all accounts, a ridiculous song, or maybe a ridiculous choice for some. But I find it quite meaningful on a personal and maybe even like a societal level. My uncle owned a discotheque when I was young, and my parents met there actually. So when I was 6 or 7, around that time, early 90s, I would usually go with him, and he had some preparations to do for the weekend. And on a Friday afternoon, I would usually roam around and dance on the dance floor while he was preparing stuff. And
Okay, hey, welcome to Make a Mixtape. I'm Zach Little. Today we're talking to Sasha from Germany, but like, I just need you to hold in your mind for a second what he just said to me that he grew up around his uncle's discotheque in Germany. Then, while holding that in your mind, I need you to understand that this interview was conducted on August 28th, 2023. And that was 3 days before I released an episode of this podcast called When in Doubt, Say Something in French. And that episode starts like this.
The song that I selected that reminds me of my childhood, and that does, is I Can Walk on Water by Bass Hunter, which is a bit of a pick, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a vibe for your childhood. Did you
Yeah.
grow up like in like a basement EDM club in Berlin? I recorded that conversation with Olivia on August 10th, and 18 days later, before anyone had heard it, I came across a person who literally lived the bit. What the fuck?
a song I really liked was a song by the Pet Shop Boys, "Go West," which is very easy to sing for a young child and easy to follow along. I mean, I could have chosen other songs, especially by Simply Red, which I love as well. My dad has an immense love for the band. We just saw them play live last year, which was great, by the way. But that music is still around. I don't just connect my childhood to it. And "Go West" is like a song that's really locked in that early 90s era for me. The end of history, the victory of liberal democracy over communism. And that was like, you had the feeling like, this is it. Like, the happy times are coming now. This is the way it's going to be. And yeah, for a 6-year-old kid, that was completely flying over your head, of course, but it's perfectly easy to understand. And if it makes sense to you, it's okay too. It's a song for everybody.
I gotta tell you that first of all, I guess I was operating under the assumption that the Pet Shop Boys, based on their name, were like a barbershop quartet. And so musically, I was very surprised. But I love the story. I love the kind of picture that you're painting of this. And it's also funny because I just finished rewatching a movie I'd seen like 10 years ago, the Baader Meinhof complex, which is about
Mm-hmm.
the Red Army faction in the 70s in West Germany. And it's really funny to like, I was kind of thinking about like the movie Oppenheimer, like having seen that recently. And then that kind of picks up a little while after, that story ends. And now your story kind of picks up a little while after that. And it's like, wow, I'm getting a new picture of like world history in the 20th century. It's kind of like it's coming into focus for me for the first time, really ever as a 36-year-old adult. We talked about it in school, but I don't think I ever really absorbed what was really happening until now.
Yeah, I mean, I have some other songs on the list as well that will connect to topical stuff, but Yeah, I mean, for a German kid, the time wasn't like I didn't realize this until much later, like how much the reunification was, like what kind of a big deal that was, like East and West Germany coming back together. And of course, that in and of itself has a huge musical history in Germany. You could make a whole list about that stuff. So Go West is easy and nice, and I think is easy to understand for everybody in the West, right? In the Western world and everybody living in democracy and so on. And it's also a very camp song. I like that a lot about it. I find it bizarrely moving. The music video is very gay and very camp and very cheap, but I find it very moving and yeah, interesting. It's just a great song, and I like the band as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to like. Clearly, I was a novice, so I'll have to do some more listening too. But I agree with you. I think that culturally, the reunification and everything is like it's probably the most interesting. It's probably the most interesting thing that's ever happened, like in
Right.
history.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. No, I totally believe that.
Mm.
I totally believe that, which is why 9/11 was like, I'm a German kid, and Germany, um, fortunately, didn't agree with the American view that the Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. So we didn't follow that war, and we didn't suffer like other countries. But of course, we went to Afghanistan as well. I don't want to make it too political, but like a lot of that stuff in that time was very influential on me. So the 90s being this very light era, and that time of happiness and childhood is something that really stuck with me a lot. And then the 2000s were heavy and emotional, and yeah, we will talk about this later.
Yeah, sure. I also saw another movie that I would throw into this sort of semi-fictional timeline of the international scene from World War II until post 9/11, and it's called A Most Wanted Man. This is a spy movie that is often referred to as Philip Seymour Hoffman's last performance, although chronologically, I think last he turned up in a Hunger Game. It is set within the Muslim community of Hamburg, Germany, and it just looks so fucking rad. Like everything is blue and yellow. It has that communist bloc adjacent grit, and there's all kinds of double crossing and tradecraft, and everyone, even Rachel McAdams, has a German accent. It was directed by Anton Corbijn, hugely influential Dutch music video director who only pops up for a slow burn movie every couple of years, and when he does, it's always worth it. All right, so let's talk about a song you consider to be an all-time favorite, and I know you had two, so you can pick whichever one you want.
Yeah, I'm choosing Daft Punk one more time, which is in a lot of ways it's a classic, but it's also my musical awakening. Like when I was younger, I was much more into films and TV shows than music. Like when I was in elementary school in the 90s, I couldn't really understand all the hype about boy bands, girl bands. I mean, I liked the Backstreet Boys fine. The Spice Girls were cool. Like I liked their movie more than their music. But there were also a lot of German bands, iconic German bands that are too obscure for your listeners to name. But a lot of my friends at school liked them and went to concerts. And I never really had that connection to music until I was watching MTV one night, and I was mostly watching it for the anime shows that they were showing. And very quickly, at the age of 13, Daft Punk brought music into my life in a way that I liked. And I get it in a way, because I said earlier, my mom and dad met at the discotheque of my uncles. And of course, they played funk and soul and disco. And so I was familiar with the music. It just spoke to me in a new language, but I knew what it was telling me. So I became a huge Daft Punk fan from that moment on. Yeah. And
that's a great way of putting it. The idea of like awakening to music. I do think that happens to a lot of people at various stages in their life. But that phrase, like it was speaking to you in a new language, but you knew what it was telling you. I love that.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I love something about it too that you will probably appreciate. Like yesterday, you posted a list of your favorite 20 songs on Twitter. And you're a big fan of the song Wolf Like Me by TV on the Radio, which I I like as well. You actually had it a few years ago. I think you did a mixtape for your first child, right? And you included it, and that
Oh
really
yeah, I
stuck
always
with
say
me.
it's the greatest song of all time.
It's probably up there for me too.
Yeah.
I'm actually ashamed it's not on the list. And I love when a song comes back. There's a bridge and it just comes back. You think it's maybe
Yeah.
over and it comes back. And with One More Time, that's maybe less so, but I really like when the song comes back and just explodes and it's just happiness. Yeah, it's just pure happiness for me. I'm not much of a dancer, but it does get me moving. And I don't want it to stop. It just makes me feel good inside. And I guess sometimes that's just it, right? I can listen to it any time of the day, any day of the year. I never get tired of listening to it. I never want it to end. And I think that's the definition of an all-timer, right?
I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And I also weirdly, I do think you talk about the idea of a song like the song coming back. I kind of feel like that's almost like it's like a not exactly a requirement, but it's a really nice to have thing about like a greatest of all time kind of song. Because it's the kind of song where you want more of it and it gives you more.
One more time. Throw that, please give me. Throw that, please. And they even got enough change in the meter. Double part looking like Bane in the beater. Her friend keep helping detangle the weave. When they jump in the front, see the play with the speakers. Let them might dance, Dutch I might dance. Plus when I stop, I might customize bands. Plus like fresh like plus, I got them up. Plus I can them result. I hop out double the roof. Yeah, I'm on my left wrist and she got the flow. Yeah, watch look like Chex Mix is supposed to be blue. I can't see me walking there. I was a Tesla, but it ain't no charge in there. I call him Blue and Brianna and Parker. They top me boxes. I'm watching Archie and Cop like stop right next to my block and trust me. Beat I might drop that hips on the stallion and Doja her top half. 2300 on the horse and I'm
All right, let's talk about a song that you're listening to a lot right now. I'm excited we get to talk about this guy.
I'm not sure. Okay. Because I sent you this list quite a while ago. And I was thinking about
that's the timeline we work on around here.
I was thinking about giving you an update because right now I love Space Invader by The National, but I have The National later on my list, so let's not talk about this. But I think
I also haven't listened. I haven't listened to that yet.
It's their best song in years. It explodes totally at the end. It's like 3 minutes of instrumentals and going insane and crazy. But yeah, I want to talk about Jack Johnson because I'm a huge Jack Johnson fan, and I know that I'm smiling or laughing because I know sometimes he's looked down upon maybe a little bit, not taken too seriously. He hasn't changed his tunes. He doesn't evolve as an artist as much, and for me, he's always been this really authentic guy, this salt of the earth guy, and it would be kind of weird for him to change. Do you know what I mean? I just kind of expect him to come back from the jungle and just be Jack Johnson again. He's too chill and relaxed to change almost. And he's had a profound impact on my life, I would say. Like, I'm not a native speaker. I started learning English quite late, actually, at school when I was 14. And as an ESL speaker, I appreciate that he's very clear in his songwriting. It's very easy to understand, good pronunciation, and for me, there's no surprise why he's such a big deal globally. At least, maybe not in the mainstream anymore, but definitely for a lot of people, he's someone to look up to, and I would credit him, to my success to some degree, because I would listen to him on my way to school, sing along, and I think I actually know most songs by heart, at least from the first few albums. And when you asked for the list, I was listening to Meet the Moonlight, which for me is such a nice song. It's just pure bliss. It's so soothing. It communicates such a feeling of pleasure and joy. And I really like the lyrics. He's just basically talking to his children in a way, which he has been for like quite a long time, in my opinion.
Yeah, he has. That's true.
You can always start over, but don't wait too long. Don't miss out on too many chances of love. Calm down, be easy, but, look around. And that's something that resonates with me a lot, because that's a sentiment also said by one of my favorite characters in movies. I love the Before trilogy, Before Sunsets, the second movie. And Celine when they are on the boat in Paris, she says, well, when you're young, you think you get so many chances, but when you get older, you realize, oh, there's only actually quite a few people in your life that really matter. And you have to take up those chances. And that's what the song is about for me in some sense. But it's also just appreciating the little moments in life whenever they arise. And yeah, it also has a really beautiful music video. Have you seen it?
No, I didn't see the video. I heard the song for the first time today. So I think that Jack Johnson is like, he's definitely like a paragon of like dad music. Like you say, especially now, he seems to kind of like have shifted full time to kind of like speaking to the experience of being a father. My wife really likes the song You Remind Me of You. And, you know, because she really likes the idea of, she does not like when children are compared to each other or compared back to, she likes to always think of our children as their own kind of individual units, all entirely themselves. And so that's kind of the message of that song, right? Is it like, you've got your mother's nose and your father's eyes, but, you know, you remind me of you. Like, you're not a reflection of me or your mother or your siblings or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think that message definitely speaks to both of us as parents. But anyway, yeah, like I remember when Jack Johnson first appeared, like I remember the song Flake was like the first single that really broke through.
Wow.
And that was a great song, you know, and I was like, I love this guy. And then he just kind of like, he just kept doing it. And you're right that we kind of take him for granted. But as a parent, you know, like you say, that accessibility of his music, it appeals to younger children too. So we do a lot of, you know, we listen to a lot of Banana Pancakes and stuff around the house. Yeah. And I like that he's just like a guy who lives in Hawaii and puts out music when he feels like it and goes on a tour when he feels like it. It's like he's living the dream. I love him.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I do have a question for you though. Do you think that it's possible that some musicians who've been around for a long time are getting too good at singing now? Like in the olden days, singer-songwriters would smoke and drink and their voices would gradually degrade. And so we would get these later period albums where their voices were like really growly and, you know, like Leonard Cohen. However, it feels like the new generation of singer-songwriters, they're too healthy, right? These people have all stopped drinking a long time ago. They're all vegan. They're all very healthy. When I hear Jack Johnson's voice, I'm like, I feel like he's singing notes for longer and he's finding like different melodies now. And that's not supposed to happen when you get older.
Right.
It's a little bit uncanny. Like, I think I haven't heard a new word Jack Johnson song in a couple of years. So when I heard it, the first thing I was struck by was his voice. I was like, he sounds like he's getting better at singing. And that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah.
You're supposed to get worse at it as you go along.
I mean, he's probably the healthiest person on the planet anyway, right? He's vegan and he's really into activism and trying to help climate change and so on. There's another person on the list that I think has gotten better, like Fleet Foxes. Robin Pecknold has really improved his voice over time as well, and he's also living really healthily. Like,
but Robin Pecknold is still young. That's the thing, right? He's getting better because he probably was recording music when he was younger and not necessarily singing live all the time, and has then become a touring musician who's singing way more than he probably ever used to sing. And so that changes your voice. But he still has time to get old and growly. A song I've been listening to a lot lately is The Body of an American by the Pogues. My friend Jory and I always send each other this song on St. Patrick's Day, but also every time a member of the cast of The Wire passes away. Because for fans of the show, this song has a particular significance. It's used in several funeral scenes, both real and mock funerals, actually. Anyway, I sent it to Jory again today, but this time in honor of the guy who wrote it. Shane MacGowan, lead singer and songwriter of the Pogues, passed away right after Henry Kissinger. And so there were a lot of jokes about that being the sort of almighty compromise that was made, kill the devil but take an angel in exchange, but I would personally prefer to disentangle Shane's legacy with that of Kissinger's.
On a tanker, boys,
They hiss advice, but were with a pen.
So, okay, as a teenager, I got interested in this band called Flogging Molly through a double-disc Warped Tour compilation album. You know, you'd buy it because there'd be like an unreleased Blink-182 track on there, but the bonus would be you discover 6 new bands that you liked and 10 more bands where you wouldn't be upset if they turned up as an opening act at a Blink-182 show. Flogging Molly was in the upper tier of that kind of hierarchy. I definitely purchased at least one full CD, which I listened to a lot at my dad's house, where I seemed to be a lot in my high school years. I sometimes wonder why I have more memories from there than I do from my mother's house, where I actually grew up and probably technically still even spent more time as a teenager. It's probably because my band practiced at my dad's house, and so there was all this creativity that I remember more than anything else. You know, I remember jamming with the band in the basement, those times where we really found something or just had a particularly good time goofing off. I remember recording music with my brother Morgan and our friend Josh in our old bedroom upstairs, creating these loop-based songs with lots of little instrumental layers. You know, we were discovering a recording technique that I still use pretty much exactly the same way today. Sort of songwriting by accumulation of sound. Speaking of sound, you know, my dad never complained about the noise. Over at my mom's house, my stepdad certainly did. My stepdad would complain about an acoustic guitar 4 rooms away. So, I guess it makes sense that we had kind of a refuge at my dad's place. We really had free reign there. Like, even when I look back at my high school sketch comedy videos, everything that we didn't film at the TV station is filmed in my dad's kitchen. This is one of those moments where, you know, you realize your parenting style really is modeled after your father's and not in a bad way. It feels nice to realize. By the way, side note, but when you're a new parent, you know, people give you a lot of faith and latitude in what you're doing and the intention behind it. And as it turns out, it's very temporary.
Then the rosary beads, counting 1, 2, 3, fell apart as they hit the floor. In a garb of black, we must pay respect to the color we're born to mourn.
Anyway, another thing about my dad's house was that it was pretty close to town. Like, I could walk there from my summer job. And so it was the first time that I experienced and understood how it was to be like a hub for your circle of friends. It will come as no surprise that I really liked that, being the hub. When I lived in Portsmouth, our apartment was that place. You know, it was close to downtown, it was on the ground floor, people were always there and hanging out, whether they were passing through or in the area for a while and using us as a home base. I have a lot of fond memories of that, and I really love hearing when other people do too. When we bought our house and moved to Rollinsford, we were still that hub somehow for a while. You know, we were the first ones to own a house, which felt important, and we were just off the highway on the way north to our and our friends' hometowns, so we were always a convenient stop. Now, our friends are really spread out, like around the whole country. They're not just driving up from Boston anymore. And they have houses of their own, and they're starting to have kids of their own, and so now, you know, after a very long run, we're not the hub anymore. And I think I've been kind of quietly mourning that for a while. Anyway, back at my dad's house, 20 years ago, I was listening to the Flogging Molly CD, and my stepmother, Katie, told me that I would probably like this band, The Pogues. She did not say, "This band that you like is absolutely entirely ripping off The Pogues," but she would have been right to say so. Flogging Molly is irrelevant now. They got market corrected by the Dropkick Murphys anyway, and The Pogues are immortal. Not just at Christmas time when radio stations debate about whether or not they need to censor Fairy Tale of New York. So my stepmom burned me a CD of the Pogues, and I understood that what I was hearing was the real deal. It was the Dr. Pepper version of Flogging Molly's Mr. Spice. Though to be totally honest, it took stuff like The Wire and covers of Pogues songs by bands like Titus Andronicus to get me to fully appreciate it over the years. But yeah, I listened to The Body of an American probably 6 or 7 times already today. I'm not done. It's a wonderful and propulsive song. It's full of story and history and feeling. Basically, it's about a guy named Jim Dwyer, a freeborn man of the USA, and the experience of attending his funeral. When it shows up in The Wire, in that first season, it's used in a scene that really unlocks the world for you. gives you a sense of the depth of these characters and the world outside of what you're seeing in every episode. That's why The Wire is so famous. It's an absolutely massive story with tiny details about dozens of characters that suggest volumes of life off screen. Which is not unlike the worlds depicted in songs by the Pogues. Even just now, I learned something about the lyrics to Body of an American that I never knew before. There is a line that goes, "Spanish wine from far away," which is not just a stray detail about a dead man's preferences for alcohol, but it's in fact a coded reference to support for the IRA. The Spanish military assisted in Ireland's resistance to England, while monetary support mostly came from Irish people in America. So Spanish wine from far away is an approving reference to the fact that Jim Dwyer was an IRA supporter. Shane MacGowan was an incredible storyteller, real ear for people, and this episode is dedicated to him. Fare thee well.
Fairly well gone away, there's nothing left to say. But to say adieu to your eyes as blue as the water in the bay. To picture Jim Dwyer, a man of war, who was often heard to say, I'm a free-born man of the USA. I'm a free-born man of the USA. I'm a free-born man of the USA.
All right, so let's talk about everybody's favorite sad dads, The National, and a song that makes you sad or sustains a sad feeling.
Yeah, it's hard to find. Definitely an overlooked song. I just looked it up before we started recording on Setlist. They haven't played it live in like years, and only a handful of times over the last decade. So it's a song that's really special to me. I love all of their songs. I'm a big The National fan, perhaps my favorite band next to Fleet Foxes. And so many of their songs, as you just mentioned, are about sad dads, and they're sad about a failing relationship or maybe, failing as a person. But it's here so much more about a temporal impossibility, like having done something and knowing you can't go back, no matter how hard you try. And so many of their songs are often kept in the moment and you're struggling. But here, I think this is much more wistful and ultimately longing and very sad. Like, I'm a very nostalgic person, and I'm not nostalgic because I want to repeat an experience or see people again. I mean, I would appreciate that, but it's not. When I think about nostalgia or when I'm being nostalgic, it's not about that. It's not about the experience and repeating it. It's just that I'm kind of wrecked by the, how to say, I'm just wrecked by the fact that it somehow existed at one point and now I'm somewhere else. Do you see the difference? It's not about the desire to be there. It's grief over fragmentation of past and present selves. In a way, I mean, it's a very selfish emotion, I think. Nostalgia, no one's really giving a shit about your nostalgia, but everyone will forgive it to some degree because we all are nostalgic to some degree, I think. And for me, nostalgia is always intertwined with love. I miss you, right? The song is about missing a person. I miss you because I love you, and I love you because I miss you. And I think you can feel nostalgia about a lot of things you have never experienced or things that are intangible by now. And I think the song has a few lyrics that always break my heart. And it's not just about a lover, it's just about people in the past. Like, if I tried, you'd probably be hard to find, is a very defeatist way of looking at things, but also very realistic. Like, there are people in my life I haven't spoken to in years, and I don't know where they live, I don't know what they're doing, but I still feel incredible love for them. And at another point he says, there's a lot of things I've not forgotten, but I let go of other things. And I think that's very true. At the end of your life, you will see that it's probably the people, right, you held closest to you, and maybe people you haven't spoken to in years, and they are not easy to find. And that's, I think, hard to deal with, to be honest.
I think I just recently had like a sort of pang of the exact same kind of like nostalgic melancholy that you're talking about. And what's funny is it actually came up of all places in a letter that Robert Oppenheimer wrote. So
Yeah.
I'm listening to the audiobook of American Prometheus, the book about Robert Oppenheimer, and he talks about this idea of like this. I think he's talking about a kind of a woman that he's like infatuated with, and he says like, and what if I forget most of it, And it's like that's actually what I think about when I'm sometimes sort of nostalgic, right? As you think about, it's not even like what might have been. It's like what probably was that you missed,
Yeah, yeah.
like relationships and friendships that you wish you could have been more like mentally present for. You wish you could know and understand about yourself and other people what you understand now, because you would have not even done anything differently, but appreciated it more. Like there are these pieces of the experiences that you had that you barely remember, that you could have experienced in a slightly different way, that would have been better.
We on his ass, he in the A, you see how long they stay for. Ain't no hotel room, we pop outside the height with Dracos. Hellcats, they get off any scene, the police chase those. Trolling ass, we shot your homie, we know he can take those. If I say your name, don't post it, I be on all kind of shit. Ain't got time to watch your page to see if niggas die to shit. I know bitches set you up, literally niggas down to hit. And this industry ain't what it seem, this shit be counterfeit. Ain't no lagging, she say I'm a nigga from the trenches with an accent. Why you asking me who shot your homie? Why you asking? You got my number, you post shit on the gram, you moving backwards. You lucky you don't be doing shit for the gram, you niggas cannot bleed no rumors. Rest in peace to Cooper. I jumped on the school bus and out here broke a Ruger. Always drunk a 8-pack, I never drunk a cooler. They get your location, they might pop outside in Ubers. When his goofy ass jumped in the streets, his ass a hooper. I know this shit don't matter, I took a shower with a cougar. Bring him out retirement, he gon' kill you for that moolah. Catch him in the morning, wake him up, that boy a rooster.
He took it to trial, I tried to tell him it was stupid. They gave him so much time, his knees got weak and he was woozy. Watch the shit you say, the best be listening to the music. And they gon' take your lyrics and build a case and try to use it. He ain't dropped my murder, didn't have evidence to prove it. I think my house is honey about who the ghost of Pookie. He ain't killed nobody, but keep rapping about the shooting. Still ain't got revenge yet, but keep making up excuses. First done drunk so much, like that his gut got big as food. Told him, go while he ahead and don't go out like Whitney Houston. He got caught without it, now they robbing him for his rubies. You ain't give it up, so he got buried in his Cuban.
And I bleed no rooms, rest in peace to Cooper. I jumped on the school bus and out here broke a Ruger. Always drunk a 8-pack, I never drunk a cooler. They get your location, they might pop outside in Ubers. When his goofy ass jumped in the streets, his ass a hooper. I know this shit don't matter, took a shower with a cougar. Bring him out retirement, he gon' kill you for that moolah. Catch him in the morning, wake him up, that boy a
Niggas ain't
rooster.
see what I saw. A brick turned to a pot full of gold. Over that, spent my daughter's first birthday locked in a hole. Plot full of gold, came back stronger. I'm in control. Soft white from my block to the stove, not in the phone. Me and Westlake, Stockton Malone, Gotti Capone. Niggas dressed like the copying hoes. Bobby Capone, stop what you know, not with the smoke. I get you low. In about a year, how niggas going to deny me?
So now we're gonna jump into Fleet Fox's Town. And so we'll talk about Grown Ocean, a song that makes you feel creative or inspired. Tell me about why.
Where to begin? I feel like every good mixtape has a band at least 2 times on. So the next 2 songs are by
I think you're right.
Fleet Foxes.
Yeah.
And Fleet Foxes are very nature bound, very much connected to nature. They're very visual and imaginative, and all these aspects of singing about water and the sun, the seasons, all that stuff just comes together beautifully for me here, because for me the song is a warm summer morning after perhaps some difficult time like overcoming depression or suddenly feeling creative inspired again. There's a tempo here at the beginning which is sorely missed on any other song after Josh Tillman, Father John Misty, right? He was the drummer of the band. After he left the band, I think it was a huge loss for the band creatively in some ways. I'm happy that they're all happier now. And I don't think struggling is... I don't believe in that mantra, you know, you have to struggle to create good art. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think his influence was definitely heard on this track and the album. And the song makes me feel inspired because of the lyrics. Helplessness Blues is like millennial anxieties to the max, right? It's very heavy in its songs. The other albums are a little bit less heavy. Like Shore is just pure bliss, and Crack Up is like a college essay, like overwrought and overwritten. And Self-Titled is perhaps a bit too easy. So I'm a huge Fleet Foxes fan. And when he sings that song, I think you feel so happy, relieved, and inspired. You can hardly wait to talk to a person again. You can't contain your happiness, your inspiration. You seek out other people and you have to tell them about your thoughts and your feelings. It's such a sprawling, sparkling song. It's just this exuberance that's speaking to me here. Like all my life, I will wait to attain it, whatever it is. And it's a song about beginnings.
The only thing I always think about with Helplessness Blues is that I remember reading an article where Robin Pecknold talked about how like his fiance left him during the recording process of that album, but then like they got back together, and when he played it for her, she was like, you know, you were so unbearable while you were making this album, but it was worth it. And it's like that's like the worst thing for like an artist with any kind of propensity for being difficult could possibly ever hear. It's like being a really anxious person who actually did leave your stove on one time when you left the house. You know, it's like you don't want that. Like I'm sure he was like, that's the worst thing you could have told me, because you just gave me permission to do that for the rest of my life.
That's hilarious.
But that's what I always think about. I think sparkling is such a great word for describing that song and just a lot of Fleet Foxes music.
I mean, the next song, a song that I associate with a good memory, is in the same category. I think it's "Going to the Sun Road" from their latest album, Shore. I have to go on a tangent here, maybe if you indulge me. When I was a student, I decided not to do a traditional uni exchange program where you go just to another city, European city, and you just spend a semester there. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to go to the US. I wanted to, have a little adventure. And if you study English, you have to spend some time abroad. And this was at the end of my studies already, and I was kind of feeling tired of studying. I didn't want any of that traditional stuff. I wanted some real slice of life adventure type deal. So I did a work and travel visa program, and I ended up working in Montana in Glacier National Park. Have you ever been there?
No.
No, I worked at a hotel as a room attendant, which was a great experience overall. Perhaps in some ways the most challenging, but also the best few months of my life. And there I met Nathan, an American who just graduated from high school and was also looking for some kind of summer adventure. And we bonded really quickly, and we had a great summer. And by the end, it was time to say goodbye. Not forever, definitely not for too long, we agreed, but it would be 8 years until we wanted to meet again. But that was in 2020, and COVID happened and the trip was canceled. I had already the flight tickets and everything. We were bummed.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
That year in 2020, Fleet Foxes released Shore. And despite like the year being shitty and the summer being pretty okay, I was super anxious at that time about COVID coming back in the fall and so on. It was just an uneasy time. And with the album, they released this 1-hour film full of the American West on 16 millimeter. And I think it looks absolutely stunning and fabulous. And late in the album, there just comes a text on the screen, "Going to the Sun Road." And from the first few tunes of the horns coming in, I just started bawling my eyes out, because Going to the Sun Road is an actual road in Montana, in Glacier National Park, that we drove on a few times. And it's a scenic mountain road going right through the Rocky Mountains, through the park, across the Continental Divide. And it's just the most beautiful, heavenly places you can imagine. It's just eternal. Now, I hope you can guess where I'm going with this. We met again last year, and 10 years later, we actually did the trip. We drove on the actual road, listening to the song, and which it was very poignant, of course, but it's one of the most, I don't know, the most pleasing experiences ever. I was so happy. And the song itself is just amazing, in my opinion. Um, we talked about songs that kind of change or that come back. And I think this song comes back in a fabulous way you're not really expecting because Fleet Foxes is just Robin Pecknold, right? No, he's actually got some other singers on this album. And after the bridge, there's like this crescendo where Tim Bernandes, a Brazilian artist, comes in. And before that, there's a harpsichord. I had to look that up. And it just sounds like the purest, freshest waterfall. And the horns create this heavenly atmosphere, which is totally apt for this going to the sun road feeling you have. You're like in the middle of the mountains, thousands of feet up, and you can overlook everything. And it's just so nice and serene and beautiful and just nature, pure nature, everywhere you look, except for the road, of course, and some some park stuff. But yeah, I just whenever I think of this, I think of Nathan and this beautiful friendship we had. And for 2 years, I had to think about the COVID summer, and then it kind of changed and it became a totally good memory.
That is actually a funny thing. That feels like it happens fairly often in people's stories about a song they associate with a good memory. Sometimes it's one that they used to associate with a bad memory or that's complicated in some ways, but sort of gets redeemed. The song comes back. So I love that. This is like becoming my favorite question on the podcast because these stories are all so amazing. Yeah. So with Fleet Foxes, they are great at songs that I always think of them as kind of like 2-part songs, which is funny because eventually they started releasing songs with like slashes in the titles,
Right. Yeah.
as kind of like reflective of that. But even before that, they have that thing where the song will kind of shift or it'll pick up in a way that you didn't expect it to, and it is always kind of a reflection of like the joyfulness of that music. So speaking of bands that often have 2-part songs, let's talk about a song that you associate with a bad memory.
Yeah, it's Arcade Fire's Windowsill. I mean, the Arcade Fire is in a sad state of affair right now.
Sure is.
And it's all a little sad. A lot of bad memories that I connect now to the band. It's hard to talk about them, which you have done at length, which I loved, by the way. Hi, Morgan.
Yes.
I was
we have avoided the subject for a while though.
I was super pumped about the last album, which was ultimately disappointing for me. I think I feel the same way about you and your brother, like you did. And I absolutely agree. Like there's another album that was awaiting us. I totally feel that
Definitely.
This
is the conspiracy theory that I will die for now.
I mean, it had a few good songs, like the Lightning 1 and 2 were incredible songs, a nice throwback to a time where I really like the band a little bit more. I'm not so much of a fan of their sound shift in the 2010s, so I have to go back to Neon Bible, their sophomore effort, and it's quite a political album. I mean, the band's activism has always been met with a certain seriousness, I think, but the way Butler's songwriting and his media criticisms and other ideological views were seen on like an album like Everything Now, like how they were ridiculed. I think that was to some degree maybe fair a little bit. Like that was very superficial. I'm not so sure how you feel about it anymore, but we'll see. Windowsill, however, I think feels very authentic, very apt in its rage, its disillusion, and a desire to run away, to close the shutters, and a desire for some ignorance of bliss. And I was listening to the song in 2016 quite a lot, and it's maybe a bit weird for a German person to now name a bad memory and say it was the election of Donald Trump. I mean, I felt that very deeply.
Bad for everybody.
Not just because I'm a pol sci major or because I'm interested in the US. I just felt shaken to my core in a Lynchian way, like something is happening that's not supposed to happen, yet here we are. And as I said, I'm interested in the stuff, so I couldn't really look away. I was following the news despite my better judgment, but I also knew that it would ultimately do me no good. So the whole song of not wanting to see something when you look outside into the world, that rage, maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe rage is a little bit too much, but I definitely felt a certain rage. But that authenticity of just saying no, I don't want to see that now. I don't want to see that when I look outside. I don't want to live in the US anymore, at least in my head. That was really prevalent at the time. I was listening to the song on my way to work, driving, and I was just crying and singing along. And it just felt very true to heart. And yeah, it's definitely a bad memory that I connect to that song. And before that, the 2000s, of course, right? That's the context the album I think was released in, which I often miss. Like the band that wrote Neon Bible, how have they made a new album that is absolutely or almost unpolitical, right? The new album is missing quite a lot of what I loved about the band, and especially in the songwriting too. But yeah, I don't know how you feel about it.
I don't know. I felt like
So,
I fell in love with Arcade Fire from Funeral, and so
mhm.
I didn't necessarily always associate them as like a political band. I think I might have talked about this one time in the podcast, but like I liked the kind of political and like atheism of Neon Bible, but then I started to sort of associate it with the the slightly annoying tone that perspective started to take after a while. Like there was a certain self-righteousness
Yeah.
about like being progressive and being an atheist and everything that I saw in myself, and I sort of course corrected, right? And so because of that, I was like, oh, there's this judgmentalness in Neon Bible that I'm not a fan of. However, have not revisited that album much in recent years. And so in the same way that you found resonance in that song like 9 years after it came out, I think that is probably something that, this is the case a lot of the time with artists who are political, right? Especially the ones that people kind of think of as like cringy political, is that ultimately their perspective does kind of win out, like ultimately with the distance of time, the corniness of it sort of goes away, or the edges of it get sanded off, and it works better later. So who knows?
Yeah, I think
I
you get
haven't.
more sentimental when you get older, and I think you can appreciate the truth in the statements more, and everything else just falls away. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was today's episode of Make a Mixtape. Thank you to Sasha. That's actually we're caught up now. We've made it through all of the interviews that I initially recorded this summer when I first started going around asking who wanted to participate in the show. There's probably a whole other list of people I need to go excavate out of my various inboxes for the next round, and we'll get to that. Will we get another episode out before the end of the year? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. If I don't see you before then, though, Happy New Year. Good riddance 2023. Let's slap the old reset button in 2024. No matter what happened this year, going forward, I wish you the best, and I believe in the best for you. I believe it's gonna happen. I believe it's gonna happen for all of us.